Hello and welcome to the Trauma Treatment Collective vlog. Today we're going to be talking about feeling avoidance. And you may see me looking down. I've decided to just start doing notes for the actual vlogs because there's so much information that I want to share with you. I can't keep it all up in my head, and so I have decided, you know what, I'm just going to do notes and I'm going to do that. So let's get started with feeling avoidance. So you may be wondering, what's feeling avoidance? I've never heard of feeling avoidance before. It's just a term that I have coined, I guess. And I see it a lot in my clients when I will ask them, well, how does that make you feel? Or how do you feel about that? And a lot of times I will get two answers, one of two answers. I'll get, I don't know, which is more of that denial and kind of not wanting to go into that territory. Or I will get more of the numb, kind of like, I can't feel anything. I don't have any feelings. And so sometimes I will see that in clients more likely than not. And so I decided to do a vlog about talking about, like, how do you work with that? How do you get around that? How do you deal with that? And so it can be a really hard place, in the trauma treatment process. It can derail the trauma treatment process because you really kind of get stuck. When a client is kind of, just always saying, I don't know, or I don't feel anything, it can really be frustrating to them because they want to move on and they want to feel something, or it can be really frustrating, and it can be really frustrating to you as a professional because you're like, what do I do with that? How do I even manage that? I don't even know where to go with that. And so it can kind of be almost kind of, I envision like this dead end kind of, experience. Like we're trucking along and we run right into a dead end. And then we have to back up and pull out and, do all the things. And then we're going, and then we run into a dead end. And so it feels like we're not moving forward. We get so far and then we kind of get stuck. So I got 3 things I want you to consider when you're thinking about feeling avoidance. Actually, no, I'm sorry, 4 things I want you to consider. I want you to see it as kind of a defense mechanism. So usually if a client has feeling avoidance, it is a defense mechanism. It is a way for them to stay safe. And I think when we can look at it that way and we can conceptualize it in our minds in that way, then we can kind of work with it in a different way. And so it's okay. There's not enough safety on board for this client to go in that territory. There's not enough safety on board for them to feel the emotion that they're avoiding. And so, I think about it as I'm reading this new book called Nurture Resilience. And it calls it defense accommodations. And I like the term accommodations instead of mechanism, because accommodations kind of gives you the mindset of, okay, this is in place for a reason. This is in place because of something that this client has kind of built up over time to keep them safe. And so if I can normalize that and help them to understand that and provide psychoeducation around that, then I will be able to help them to kind of move past that. A lot of times what I will do is provide psychoeducation, and then I will also give them some different ways of coping with that feeling or coping with that sense of being unsafe, so that they can kind of let that defense mechanism or that defense accommodation down and kind of start dealing with it in a more healthier manner. The other thing is focusing on pleasant feelings more than you're focusing on those negative feelings. So when you're thinking about the feelings, I kind of provide the psychoeducation that feelings are on a breaker. So if you think about an electrical breaker, like if I have a breaker that's kind of electrical current that's running to this room that I'm in right now, if I have multiple outlets on that breaker, if I turn that breaker off, then it shuts the power down to all of those different outlets. And so feelings are kind of like that too. We can't shut one down and not shut all the others down. So if you think about it, if they're avoiding an unpleasant feeling, then that means more than likely they're not feeling a lot of pleasant feelings either. So if I can heighten or awaken the pleasant feelings, then that may also help them to be more comfortable with the unpleasant. So we try to focus a lot on the pleasant feelings, so the things that they feel comfortable feeling, and we really try to take time to really embody that and really encourage that and allow them to feel that in session in hopes of awakening and being more comfortable with those unpleasant feelings. So that's another way you can do it too. using tools to increase the client's feeling vocabulary. So a lot of times I will find that clients never really was supported in kind of identifying their feelings. So they don't know necessarily what they're feeling, or they don't know how to label it, or they just kind of know the basics like happy, sad, mad, glad, you know, those things. So I provide them with a feelings wheel, and I'm going to link that in the description section below. So if you have never heard of that, or if you want a copy of your own, you can kind of go down and look at that. But the feeling wheel has the basic feelings, and then it breaks out into more complex feelings, and then it breaks out into even more complex feelings. And so it looks at the different feelings, the basic ones, and then, you know, like I said, it expands out. And this is really helpful for clients because they're like, wow, I didn't know it was this many feelings. Or when they're saying I don't know, or I don't feel anything, I'll give them that sheet and I'll say, well, you know, just let's read over some of these options and see if any of these spark your interest, or if any of these feel right for you, or you resonate with them. Then, you know, we can talk about it. And so by giving them some support in that area of just really starting to develop their feeling vocabulary, sometimes that will jumpstart them into noticing, okay, there is something going on here, or I just didn't have the right word, or I didn't know what to call it, but I think it feels like this. And so they can start exploring different feelings and starting to get kind of connected with different feelings. And then the last thing I wanted to share with you is touch and go. So this is kind of something I've learned over the years of sometimes it's really good to touch a thing and leave it alone. So I touch it a little bit and then I'll move on to something else. I touch it a little bit and then I'll move on to something else. So if I know that a client is really struggling with connecting with their emotions, I may just open up that conversation for a little bit, and then I may be like, oh, so what did you do this weekend? You know, something totally unrelated. Or I'll, you know, just joke with them or laugh with them about something. And this is really a way of being able to touch into something that's really activated or really charged with a lot of energy around it, and then move to something a little more resourcing, and then go back and say, oh yeah, so we were talking about this and this, and so I go back to that and I touch it a little bit, and then I move back to something that's a little more resourcing. And so that's a nice little way of kind of thinking about doing the work. And so touch and go, it's this really nice rhythmic way. If you can kind of get into that flow with a client, it really helps them to be able to sustain the work, so that they don't get into something that's super activated, get overwhelmed, shut down, all the defensive accommodations come up, and now we're kind of trying to dig out of that hole we just dug ourselves into. But rather, we touch it for a little bit, and then I move them to something else, and then I'll go back and say, yeah, we were talking about this, so we touch it a little bit, keep talking about it a little, maybe a little bit more deeper, and then we'll go and resource and let the system rest so that it has more capacity to keep kind of going back and forth between the two. So that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. So I'll go over those again just so you kind of know exactly what I'm talking about here. So the first one is seeing it as a defense mechanism or a defense accommodation, and normalizing that for the client can be really helpful. Focusing on pleasant feelings versus just all the unpleasant feelings. So if a client is talking about something that's really resourcing to them, and you see kind of like the light of life in their eyes, and you see their eyes kind of sparkle, you want to really hang out there and let them feel that, and really kind of let them embody that and flesh that out. And then using tools to increase their feelings vocabulary. Again, I'm going to link in the discussion section the feelings wheel that I use, and then the last thing is touching and going. So those are some ways for you to work with feeling avoidance. Hopefully this is helpful for you. Hopefully you'll be able to use some of these tools, and you will be able to see some movement with your clients, and you guys won't keep running into that dead end. I know it can be frustrating. I know it can be frustrating for you as a provider as well as for the client. So maybe these things can be really helpful. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you like this video. Also, if you want to screenshot this video and share it on your Instagram or your Facebook stories, I would love it. Make sure you tag me in it. I want people to know that this resource is out there for them. So any help you can give in making sure that you share it, or sharing it in different groups and things that you may be in, social media groups, the more we can get the word out about the Trauma Treatment Collective, the more providers can be supported and helped, and we can continue to help as many people heal from trauma as we possibly can. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.